Today's video is going to be another installment of incredible ideas that you can turn into massive TikTok accounts. I have so many ideas that just pop into my head on a whim, and I don't have time to take action on myself, but I also don't want these to go to waste, and so I can't help but just evangelizing them at times. So without further ado, here's the Viral Ideas List 2.0. Let's get the show on the road. Starting with number 4, 3-word stories featuring guests. I used to love doing 3-word stories with friends many years ago. 3-word stories are where you start with 3 words, once upon a, for example, and then someone else continues that sentence by adding 3 more words. You do this as a cycle until you have an entire story. I would absolutely love to build an account around this idea where each new video is a guest coming on, preferably someone who's already established on TikTok, and they add 3 more words to whatever story is being created. You might jump on a Zoom call or do it in person. You would put them on the spot, read the last 20 words of the story just to give them and the viewer some context, and then you would ask them for their 3 additions to this story. Now, of course, you probably would have to snowball the guests that you feature, start with someone small, and then eventually build up to larger and larger creators who would contribute to this story as the idea eventually gained momentum, but I think it's entirely achievable. You could even do something where you publish the final story as a booklet or as a poster. As a poster, someone could tack that on their wall and it had the entire story written out, all the hilarity, all the contributors and things like that. That would be a better idea. Or you could just upload it to TikTok as a full-on 10-minute long video, and the account wouldn't have to end there. You could start the next story, and maybe there's a theme for this one, for example, like Sasquatch. In a similar vein to that 3-word story idea, call it idea 4.5 if you will, I think you could also have success with Mad Libs on TikTok as well. Mad Libs are sort of fill-in-the-blank stories where you might gather a list of adjectives, nouns, pronouns, verbs from your audience or a guest ahead of time, and then you fill in the blanks, you fill in a pre-written story template with those words, and you just witness how funny it is as you capture each other's reactions. I actually did some research before this video, and trust me, there is no shortage of Mad Lib templates that I just think could make hilarious viral conversations and stories for TikTok. This idea has to be done well, lots of text, lots of editing involved so that the audience can easily track the story. But I think TikTok culture would greenlight this idea pretty quickly, and if you could lead and leverage guests, other creators that the masses on TikTok are already familiar with, I don't think it would take too long to get this idea off the runway. Moving on to number 3, review redemptions. Now, this is not going to make much sense as a title, so let me unpack this for you. One of the most hilarious far corners of the internet, in my opinion, are reviews. 1-star Amazon reviews, negative gym reviews, bad food reviews. People will often go out of their way to make things seem much worse than they really are, often adding a touch of humor and exaggeration in the process. I thought about creating an account where you would take one of these negative comedy reviews and you would see if the product or the service or the event actually lives up to it or not. Now, you're not going to be doing this for boring products like a laptop or something that is tech or kitchen oriented. Who knows? You would really have to do your due diligence in finding products that definitely have a unique viral punch factor to them, like sugar-free gummy bears, for example. That's a product at Amazon that's notorious for having a plethora of bad reviews associated with it. But I do think building an account around this idea does lend itself really well to good watch time. You lead with comedy, you lead with something that is hilarious, that is out of the ordinary. After all, it is a bad review. And then that sort of sets the stage as a promise that you're going to try to prove or disprove by actually reviewing the product, the service, or the event. I think review redemptions, it also is a great foot in the door for affiliates as well. Maybe you could take a product from Amazon's funniest review list, which is an actual list on Amazon. You would order the product, try it out, see if it lives up to the negativity and the bad reviews, and maybe if you found the product actually had real utility or it was a product that just had a viral punch factor to it, you would just link the affiliate for that product in your bio, and people would organically make their way over to that link anyway. You don't have to even pitch in the video. In fact, I would recommend against that. You don't want people to get the sense that you're trying to shove a product down their throats as your real intentions behind starting the account. You want it to be very organic and exploratory. It's definitely a really good idea to bring new and underappreciated products to light, and if you're a bit adventurous and you want to try putting yourself in the line of what these bad reviews say, then I think you could really carve a very unique niche for yourself. Moving on to number 2, word of the week with highlights. I grew up watching a lot of Good Mythical Morning on YouTube, and one of the things I think Mythical has done incredibly well is giving their audience a medium to actually participate in their own content by having their fan base highlights at the end of every episode. This concept of actually giving your audience a way to show up in your content, I think has yet to be successfully executed on TikTok. Now, to be fair, TikTok does have the duet feature, which is sort of a janky version of taking 2 pieces of content, maybe one's reactive and one's sort of the source material, and then you create a singular piece of content out of both of these. But I thought thought an idea, a cool wrapper for giving your audience a way to participate in your content would be to introduce maybe a new word every single day or every other day. Let's just say the word was plethora, for example. You would challenge your audience to make use of that word in their day-to-day conversations. They would film it, they would upload it to TikTok, use a certain hashtag that you would create around this entire challenge or around this account, and you would feature portions of their conversations in your next upload. This is a very unique idea, but something like this I think you could build a diehard fan base around fairly quickly, as long as you made sure that there was somewhat of a low barrier of entry for participating in this challenge. For example, a word a week, learning a new word a week is doable. A word a day, not so sustainable for the average person. It's also TikTok as well. People are keeping tabs on hundreds of different profiles, hundreds of different new faces they see a day, all shouting at them for their attention. So it needs to be a very simple idea, almost an idea that people don't have much of an excuse not to do. An account like this is one that I would follow in a heartbeat. We were recently talking about in our TikTok Creator Pro community, brainstorming different ways that you can encourage your audience to be a bit more active in your content. And it really just comes down to giving your audience a way to actually be on the big screens with you. Give them a way to creatively contribute to your content in some way, shape, or form. The more unique the idea is, the more it stands out, and the more your audience often sees it as something worth participating in. You'll definitely have to be somewhat committed to an account like this, gathering all these different attempts and compiling them into videos. And it doesn't have to be the word a week idea. That was just an idea that I had that I would love to follow an account for. But anything that really is a fun challenge that highlights your audience's attempts at it, I think is something that people should pull the trigger on a bit more often. And let me know what the account handle is, and I'll drop it a follow. The number one idea that I want to share with you is predictions and comparisons. Who among us does not like just a little bit of speculation? We as humans, it's so ingrained in our nature to constantly want to be in the know and share the little bit of privileged information that we feel like we've stumbled upon. One of the ideas that sparked some interest in my mind to create a TikTok account around is to create an account that focuses on making predictions about potential future events and then comparing those predictions with what maybe actually transpired. And I'm not talking about magic or anything like that. I mean literally making guesses that hopefully are rooted in some research about what's going to happen on June 30th or this particular date with sports or the weather or politics or certain events. Think of it as sort of creating a thesis that you're trying to prove that you're confident is going to happen. It's almost like a mini documentary. You're confident this result is going to be brought to fruition, and here's exactly why. An idea like this has that viral punch factor, at least in my mind, because there's a timeline involved and your audience or your first-time viewers are going to want to stick around to see that comparison, whether you were right or not in your predictions. One of the concepts that we often talk about integrating into your creative output on TikTok is what we call the concept of the thread to the future, giving your audience something to look forward to. The common norm on TikTok is you see a lot of videos that are very cut and dry in and of themselves. They don't really have a reason for the audience to stick around and follow the profile in and of itself, even though the video may be somewhat decent. A prediction comparison-based account, in my mind, could do a fairly good job of creating an open loop in the mind of their viewer that could only be closed by waiting for that final video to arrive, which would talk about the prediction or the event that was supposed to come to fruition. And I think that initial video that talks about the prediction or the thesis, the mini documentary that sort of outlines all of the predictions and diagnostics of the future, I think could do a fairly good job of creating a sense of incompleteness that would give your audience a really good reason to follow. Now, I feel it worth mentioning too that any prediction comparison-based account is inherently going to be a little opinionated just by virtue of the fact that it is your speculation about what you think is going to happen. But that's also the genius of the idea as well, is it spurs on conversation and gives your viewers an opportunity to let you know whether you're right or wrong. If you're right about this particular athlete being drafted to this team in this league by this day, or this hurricane happening in this geo-targeted area in the world by this particular point in time, that's something to stick around to see if you're right about. If you're wrong, people aren't going to hesitate to give you their mind about why your conclusions were incorrect. And that's something that they can only accurately do. They can only leave those "I told you so" comments when that particular deadline comes to fruition. So I hope that idea was clear. Anyhow, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below about these account ideas that we covered today. I really do enjoy these videos where I can just shotgun blast my ideas out there that I think have somewhat decent potential on TikTok. Of course, it's always great to take your own unique spin to it, and a lot of you do that, which I'm super happy to see. So if you extracted anything of value from this video, maybe consider subscribing down below, and I'm sure we'll see you around next time.